So we're all good, Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj. We're very grateful for you joining this session. So today is 26th of December, 2021, which is referred to as Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. It's typically meant to give gifts to the poor. Also, boxes are kept in some religious organization to collect money for the poor that we know of. But nowadays, people go for shopping on Boxing Day to get great deals. And also, sports-wise, Boxing Day refers to many important sports events as well. Boxing Day test matches in Australia, South Africa, etc. But here we have His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami to give us the spiritual context to the Boxing Day. So the topic for today is In the Boxing Ring with Maya. And Maharaj needs no introduction. He's popularly known as the walking monk. And he was a student of fine arts, and his walks have been extensively featured in television, radio, newspaper, etc. So we're very, very happy to welcome His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
thank you
Maharaj.
so much. And I take it that we'll be speaking till about quarter to the hour,
Yes,
and then
Maharaj.
okay, thank you so much. And as we traditionally do, we oftentimes sing a bhajan to honor Radha and Krishna. And the song goes, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Hari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari. The song is describing the spiritual world about a river called Yamuna. It's at the bank that's there, about some of his associates, cows included, his mother, his father, the milk maidens, and so on like that. It's a beautiful song. And Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj, used to sing this song, and but we'll refrain from that because there's this ugly delay that doesn't work, so much. But and I don't have instruments with me. I'm seated here in Etobicoke. I just arrived from Vancouver 2 days ago, and I'm just doing some house programs and so on like that. Yeah. So thank you very much. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesha Tarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. And Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitanjena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. That's an invocational mantra, the last one, whereby we offer our respects to our Guru Maharaj, who opened our eyes with the torch of knowledge because we were born in the darkest ignorance, at least speaking for myself. Okay, Ananda Garanga, thank you so much. Yes, Boxing Day has much to do with the rich giving some boxes of goodies and usable items to the poor. Masters would be giving this to their servants, and in this way, everyone was happy. So those who were more well-to-do offered some gifts in charity, and so you can see that there was this, at least, still to some degree, still goes on, the spirit of giving, and that's what the Boxing Day is all about, which is today. And but the we cannot put aside this term boxing because it has become a popular sport as of late. And I did do a little research on boxing before we get to the heart of our message today, just to because it struck my fancy. I was curious as to know where boxing all hailed from. So it looks to me like it's a Kali Yuga sport, and it started about 3000 BC historically in Egypt. That's what it's recorded to be. Now, there might be some Vedic calculations. Perhaps it was popular in Vedic times amongst Kshatriyas. But as far as we know, more from the Western side of research or documentation, the Egyptians took up boxing. Good. Now, it's also mentioned in the Greek mythological stories. In Greek folklore, you have two main books called the Iliad and the Odyssey. And in the book Iliad, there is mention of a boxing tournament or a match that went on during some kind of funeral, um, as it's described in the story. And everybody knows in India we've got two popular epics, and one is the Ramayana and the other one is the Mahabharata. Well, the Greeks also have their stories, and so from the Iliad, there was mention of boxing that went on. The Sumerians also took up boxing, and so we're looking at 5,000 years ago, which is about the time of Lord Krishna, right? Greeks and then Romans. When the Roman Empire became powerful, when the Greeks were stepped aside a little bit with their might, the Romans took it up, and the way that people took up boxing was leather was strapped around the wrist and around the fist and the knuckles as well, and in this way you could sort of punch and throw your blows at your opponent and so on like that. Later on, oftentimes there was like a metal strapping placed on the outside, so this caused a little bit more damage and injuries and so on like that. It became more brutal and quite savage to the point where they decided to abolish it in about 400 AD. That's after Christ. So it became too barbaric and people were turned off. However, the sport of boxing was taken up by Europeans back in the 1600s. That would be around the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it was oftentimes when there was a dispute or disagreement between two people of a from the higher rungs of society. To end a dispute, they would do it through boxing. So whoever was the winner, he would be the let's say the conqueror over whatever was the dispute, and those who were defeated had nothing more to say, and that was how matters were settled in certain times. So then boxing schools started to appear in the 1700s, and that was in London, and then it came to the U.S. in the 1800s. United States of America took it up and didn't become really super popular until Theodore Roosevelt took it up as a practice for keeping fit and being in good shape. He took it up himself, boxing, and so from that point on, it became practically, well, a very popular sport, as we know today. So we're in the 21st century, and the last century, Muhammad Ali came out to be the champion, I guess you could say, for that century, and he became very admired and respected by people. I mean, he was an Afro-American, and even the white folks, really started to, their hearts became melted because many, Afro Americans became champions in different sports, and boxing is one. And there was a big fight between, that is, with Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis. I remember when I was a kid growing up, Muhammad Ali, his name was Cassius Clay, but he converted to the Islamic tradition, and so he got those names, Muhammad and Ali. And like I said, he was very respected by people. Um, there's some kind of terminologies. Boxing. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's like there's four sides to it in the ring or an arena, and in professional boxing, apparently they have 12 rounds of fighting, and it goes for about 3-4 minutes, and then for the amateur boxing, there would be less rounds. So when I say rounds, most of the devotees who are familiar with our Krishna conscious practice know about our japa, and you have a strand of beads, and there's 108 beads on each strand. On each strand bead, you chant the Mahamantra for trying to fight with Maya. We'll talk about Maya in a second. And the mantra goes like this, that we chant on each bead: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. So these are my beads, just to demonstrate. They're small. I keep them in my pocket. This is my latest bead bag. I put my beads in my bead bag. They're not a problem in terms of being so verbose or, like, say, dangling off the body, and especially when you go into airports. And so I put this in my little bag, and I put it in my pocket. Okay, so hardly anybody can see it. But for purposes of chanting japa, I will do it out in the open. And I've had people come to me and they say, "Oh, you're praying for us. The world really needs meditation right now." So I get a lot of compliments by having my beads exposed. Okay, so let us, in terms of boxing, bears were sometimes used as an opponent for boxing. And there was one fellow's name was Waldorf in the 40s, and he was boxing with a bear, but the bear won. Now, I also looked it up. In 2016, this happened in Ontario. One man was walking his dog, and there was this little cub that poked its head out from the bushes. And then, sure enough, mom was around. And the mother is very defensive for her baby cubs. So she attacked the gentleman who was walking his dog. The man was about 61 years old, but he actually had some background in professional boxing. So he boxed off the black bear, they can be very aggressive, and they can do damage. They can kill you, actually, with their claws and with their jaws and whatever. They can pin you down real easy. So this man intimidated the bear, and the man got away with a few scratches on his face and on his chest, but his life was saved, and because he had learned the art of boxing. So I just wanted to say, why are we talking about boxing anyways? We're supposed to be gentle people. We're supposed to be like, we were born to be wild. There's a famous song in the 60s. It was one of the first heavy metal songs that ever came out. Born to be wild. But people assume that Hare Krishna people are gentle people, so we're born to be mild, right? But why are we talking about fighting anyways? Well, first of all, Krishna talks about fighting. The word fight appears in the first shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, and it is the blind king Dhritarashtra who mentions the word. And he says, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsabaha mameka pandavas chaiva kim akuravata sanjaya. So in this first verse, the king Dhritarashtra, who's speaking, he is asking his fine secretary, who's quite a cool guy, and who was able to have this mystic vision from very far away. And there were the place of interest, the setting was north of Delhi, south of the Himalayas, and there was the war of Kurukshetra going on. And King Dhritarashtra simply asked the question uh, to his secretary, "You know what's going on, so can you tell me what is going on? I cannot see, I'm blind, but I'm curious to know what's happening with my sons, the Kauravas, and their opponents, which are my nephews, the Pandavas. What's going on as they're setting themselves up for a fight?" So the word fight in the first verse goes Yuyutsava. And Yuyutsava is a Sanskrit word, like the rest of the words in the entire Bhagavad Gita, and it means fight. So the popular martial arts technique known as Jiu-Jitsu also comes from this Sanskrit word, so we are to understand. Now, in chapter 1, because the two armies are lined up, pitted against each other, the word fight does appear quite a few times, different forms of Yuyutsuvaha. For instance, in text 21 and 22, Arjuna is asking Krishna, who's the chariot driver, please draw the chariot between the two armies. I want to see those who are desirous to fight. So the word there is yodavyam. And then in 23, yudhe also refers to fighting. I want to see those who have actually come. In text 28, yuyutsum, Arjuna, seeing those before me, he says, in this fighting spirit, I'm losing my composure, you know. So by Arjuna seeing people ready to uh, uh, take up arms, he became very intimidated and very shy. Okay, so now we're talking about people who were trained in martial arts since they were just little kids, and so naturally they'd be engaged in warfare. That was what the Kshatriyas used to do. You know, they would fight, and they would be engaged in acts of defense and aggression and defense. And so that was Arjuna's position. He had to take up arms in order to protect his people. Okay, so people are always interested to see a fight, and that's why we're kind of drawn to this particular part of the Mahabharata. A lot of tensions built up that has led to this particular point in time, and so people are anxious for fighting. And so the whole let's say where you can be sitting at the edge of your seat, you know, wondering suspensefully what is going to be happening and who's going to win, what kind of maneuvers are going to be made, and so on like that. So this is all part of the culture of the Kshatriyas, and this is like a 5,000-year-old, you know, war that took place. What does it have to do with us? We're not fighters. Most of us are not trained. I would assume that a number of people who are on board with us today, some of you might work with IT, some of you are professionals in different areas, some of you might be with the working class. It's all good. It's all very good. But what about the fighters? Are there any fighters amongst us? I don't think so. I'm sort of scrolling through. I see Mother Dwarka Devi. I can't see her with a bunch of punching gloves on her wrists. And Mahendra Bhagat, I see your names there. I don't think that you would be getting into a ring, having a fight with anybody. Govinda Das is there. Yeah, I can't see it. I just can't see it. But in truth, when we analyze a little more deeply, we are all fighters, or we should be fighters, because we have enemies always on the attack. And that enemy is Maya. Maya. So just to go back a little bit to the interest that people have about fighting. When I walked across America, it was 2016, the same year that the bear attacked the Ontario man and who boxed off the bear. I was in Toledo, and I was walking over a bridge that arched over the interstate highway. And there were two Afro-American fellows that were coming my way, yet much younger than me, and they were munching on popcorn. And when they saw me, one of the fellows who had a lot of popcorn, he just went like this, and a bunch of the popcorn just fell up on the street. And he was wondering, hey, he was curious, are you a monk? And I said, well, yes, I am. Can you teach us how to fight? How to fight, just because they got an accent there. Can you teach us how to fight? Because generally it's assumed that monks learn martial arts. And I said, well, I don't know how to fight, but I have colleagues who do, and they've taken courses on martial arts. But actually, in our order, we take a gentle approach. And there was always a policy, a principle, that if you have a dispute with somebody, first of all, you try to argue your way out of it. You try to, let's say, have it maybe even like a debate, but you try to use logic and you use wisdom and said, I don't think it's really a good idea for us to get involved in a physical bout with each other. There's no point at it because there's just a misunderstanding. Anyways, we're talking about some of the details, what brought on the disagreement in the first place. So Prabhupada, he said this about fighting. He said, he quoted a phrase in Latin, and it goes like this, argumentum ad vaculum. And what that means that when the arguments fail, then the stick must be used. In other words, when negotiations don't get you anywhere, then, okay, we'll have war. And Krishna did that himself. He tried to negotiate with Duryodhana and say, listen, it's time for us to try to settle with something here. The Pandavas deserve to have some land back. And Duryodhana was belligerent. He said, no, we will not give back as much land as you can find at the end of a pin. They are Kshatriyas, those Pandavas, they are warriors. So if they want something, they should fight for it. So Krishna was quite disturbed with the stance by Duryodhana, and therefore Krishna had determined, okay, that's it, war is on, the fight will take place. We cannot negotiate with people like you. You're unreasonable. Okay. So, this is a little bit the history behind the Kurukshetra war and why there had to be some defense methods. Srila Prabhupada talks about how there are aggressors, 6 types of aggressors, and the Kauravas fit those descriptions perfectly. And aggressors need to be dealt with. They need to be addressed. You cannot let them walk all over you. We already know that the Kauravas were out of control. They had tried to disrobe Draupadi, tried to rape her. She was the wife of the Pandavas, and so this was unacceptable behavior, right? So you have this epical story, and you have people with all kinds of weapons like bows and arrows, and there's horses and there's elephants. In India, warriors had elephants, like this Maharaj Porus. He met with Alexander the Great, and Alexander had not met with anywhere that he traveled, and he was quite victorious in all of his confrontations. But he never met until he got to India. Had he not seen warriors on elephants? That was like a new, challenge for him. The fighting spirit. Arjuna is interested to know who's involved, who's got the fighting spirit. So first of all, we have to know, who are we fighting? I mentioned already that we're all in a fight. We have to admit it. First, let's identify the enemy. So in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is saying, Krishna, what is the force that is causing people like me to act against my will? What is that force which appears to be an enemy? And then Krishna answers it. He says that Kama Isha, Krodha Isha, Rajaguna Samudbhava. He's talking about its lust. It's our strong urges that puts us into hot water, gives us difficulty. And it's born of passion, and turns into wrath. And so, wrath meaning anger. So, this is the enemy. Or, as we can say that the enemy comes in the shape of an invisible force called Maya. Maya means that which is not, that which doesn't really exist. Maya is fake. Maya is an illusion. Literal meaning of Maya is illusion. So we are in illusion, or we are in Maya, when we think that we can just kind of get everything we want to tantalize our senses. Um, Real life, real human life, is meant for taking up some austerity. And that means fighting, battling with your mind, of which Maya filters through. And Maya is sometimes personified. And just like in some traditions, we hear about the devil or Satan who gets personified. I go to South Africa every year, and the devotees from the Zulu community, they tell me they have a form of the Satan called Tokolokshe. And Tokolokshe is a short, sort of hairy and greasy man who's always there to tempt you, to allure you, and take your sense of focus away from you. So that's what illusion does. Maya, Prabhupada explains, has two businesses. Maya pulls us down from the spiritual world into the mundane existence. And the second business of Maya is to cover us over so that we can't see things properly. Maya can be uh, presented as in the form of lust, in the way of three examples are given in the Bhagavad Gita. And one is when fire is covered by smoke. So you'll have fire and it's very strong, but smoke is quite dense also, and it can cover the fire so that you can't, those glowing flames cannot be revealed because of the smoke. So that's one example of a level of illusion or Maya. The other example is given of a mirror that's covered by dust. If there's sufficient dust on a mirror, you can't see a clear image of yourself. Of course, if you have a bathroom and you don't keep it so clean, eventually it'll have all kinds of things that'll splatter onto the mirror's surface. Things such as well, toothpaste, that goes out, or if you're cleaning your teeth and with floss and something jumps out at it, and anything, or if you're shaving and the mirror gets a lot of battering, and all you have to do is clear the mirror and then you can see. But otherwise, the mirror can be covered by various substances, and then you don't get a clear image. Things are not, let's say, viewable, or not clear. That's the best word I can give. And then the other example is given of the child that's the embryo in the womb of the mother. We know a baby's there, but you can't see the baby because it's covered by layers of skin and all kinds of other substances. So these are let's say, coverings over, and it's the cover. Maya is basically like the cover that doesn't allow to have clarity of purpose in this life. So Maya comes in many different shapes and forms. If you, let's say, show up late for work or school, what do you call that? Maya. If you, let's say, have all this wonderful prasadam that we always have, at our disposal everywhere, nice prasadam, um, and you've had enough, and Maya's just whispering to you inside, it's okay, take a little bit more. Or like children at Halloween time, they get all these sweets, and you can have a little sugar in your system, but don't overdo it. You'll get sick, right? And so, but the tongue is saying yes. The eyes are big. Oh, they're so colorful. And I remember as a kid at Halloween, we got these fantastic candies. It's a little bit like toffee, and they were wrapped in sort of like a paper wax kind of thing. And just to see them, your mouth waters, and you're tempted, and this temptation is what Maya does. So Maya has so many different ways. Oh, just like say, let's give another example. You're married. You're married. You have a life partner, and yet you're attracted and drawn to someone else that you should have nothing to do with. And so this is called Maya. I mean, there's so many different ways to that Maya can come in and infiltrate. You but we have to see these desires as our enemies. It's kind of like a subtle fight. It's not the physical fight. I think sometimes the physical fight might settle matters easier than the subtle ones that we sometimes have to deal with. Maya tends to linger about and stay with us and haunt us for maybe a full lifetime, maybe a few lifetimes. But there's one thing we should never forget. I must be a fighter of Maya. And it's like if Maya is the opponent and you're in the ring, you know, Maya is in our body. Our body is practically like the boxing ring. Your obligation is to do the best you can to pin Maya down, to bring her down. Now, Maya will indeed come and try to bring us down to the point where it will be hard to come back up. That is the power and influence of Maya. So don't underestimate how forceful Maya is. Therefore, Krishna states in the Gita, Daivi Shaguna Mayi, Mama Maya Duratya, Mam Evaye Prapadyante, Mayang Etang Tarantite. So what that means is that you won't find anything more powerful than the force of Maya. And it's very difficult to overcome this force. Very hard to battle it. However, hope is found in the second part of the verse where Krishna states that, but if you surrender to me, he's telling this to Arjuna, you surrender to me, then I will protect you, from all, I will protect you from the nature of lust, from this Maya. So it's a matter of surrendering, giving yourself to the Lord, to Krishna. And then Krishna will empower you and give you the ammunition that you need. And that's another important point. How do you become powerful in this world? How you can become a powerful fighter? Well, Krishna states in the Gita that it's through the weapon of knowledge that one can stand firm and fight. It's through that influence of wisdom, knowing I'm not this body, that I'm the spirit soul. Things like very fundamental or foundational truths that help us to overcome our influence with Maya. When you take up the spiritual life and you take up the chanting Hare Krishna on the beads, you know that Maya is very strong and will try to take away the sense of determination and conviction. We know that we get knocked down. you know. But don't lie there, you know. Pick yourself up, build up the courage and confidence, and get right back in. Sometimes boxers can be practically almost tossed over the ropes that are, you know, bordering the arena or the boxing ring. But you just got to get back in there and keep fighting. You can't let Maya or the temptations of this world, you know, control your life. It doesn't work. In the famous Lord's Prayer, where the Christians say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, etc. So lead us not into temptation is the final phrase, request. Lead us not into temptation. So temptation is another word that you can use to be synonymous to Maya. So there's two kinds of Maya, by the way, and one is the Mahamaya, which is what we're all familiar with, the Maya that distracts us. And then there's something called Yoga Maya, which is a kind of illusion experienced and encountered by liberated souls. Souls who are free uh, from the illusions of this world, but they enter into another illusion whereby, let's give an example. Mother Yashoda is thinking, this baby Krishna is my son. And of course, that's big illusion because it kind of works the other way around. Krishna's the father, and everyone else is the son and daughter of God, the Father. But under some kind of love, being blinded by love, that kind of illusion, Mother Yashoda is thinking that she's in charge of this boy and needs to shape him and help him during his formative years before he grows up to be an adult, be mature, and be a man. Right? So those kind of two different forms of Maya can be studied. But what we're contending with, us, most of us who are in this world, is the illusion of that I'm this body and everything that belongs to this body is mine. If I think that the house that I acquiesced, is mine, that is Maya. If we think that my car is mine, that is my wife or my husband is mine. No, no. They are there to be looked after, but it's not yours. You are not the proprietor. My house, my car, my children, even my children, they don't belong to me. And you'll hear that from them when they become teenagers. They'll let you know very clearly that they don't belong to you on some level. Yeah, so there's many different forms of Maya. Maya is identified as the enemy, and Maya comes in the form of lust and anger and greed and madness and envy and illusion. I don't think there's any dispute about that. But we're saying, let's be a warrior. And our dear godbrother Bhaktimarga Swami, he wrote at least 3 volumes of what's called Spiritual Warrior 1, Spiritual Warrior 2, and 3, and where he addresses the different forms of illusion and being distracted. So let us admit that we are warriors. When I walked through Pennsylvania back in 2016, same year, an officer came and pulled over. He says, "Everything okay?" And I said, "Yes, everything's okay." I got a report that some kind of a monk's on the road, and I said, "Well, that's probably me. I don't see any others around." And I just commended the police officer. I said, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. You're good. You're doing a good job. You warriors are fantastic. He says, "Warrior?" He said. No one ever called me a warrior before. Actually, it was flattering for him. So let us all think in uniform or no uniform. We have to fight the illusions of the world. And whether you're on the devotional path or not, everyone has to go for some kind of level of self-discipline. It's really important to incorporate that into your life. You have to be a fighter, and it has to be with Maya that tries to break down our determination to do the things that we need to do. So we are fighters, and the ammunition is study, study Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, chant japa on your beads, stay in good company. I was sending an email to someone today, or actually a message on WhatsApp, and I said, "Hey, Satya Mohan, who's in Vancouver," I said, make sure you always have good sangha, good sadhana, and good shastra, the three S's, you know? And that will protect you. So sangha means be in good company with like-minded people who are on the spiritual path. Sadhana means to go through spiritual exercises like a workout, but only with the mind. And then finally, there's Shastra, these great books of wisdom that help us to realize that the world is full of illusion, dukkhaliyam shashvatam, place of difficulty, misery, and everything's temporary. And I can overcome the difficulties of this world by overcoming excessive desires. That's what kama means, right? So if we take shelter of these three different purposes, and sangha or sadhu, that can be interchanged. You know, just having a good counselor, good guide, which we usually refer to as guru. So Krishna is saying that tadvidi pranipatina pariprashnena sevaya upadinkshaniti jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. If we take shelter of guru, take someone as your guide who knows more than you, then you will learn so much. And if you render some service, you will learn that Krishna is within everything, that he is in everything, and that everything is mine, he says. So that's chapter 4, text 35. That's where you can find that. What you learn from the Guru is Krishna consciousness. So we're at the point where we're at 11:45, according to my watch here, and I think we can just reflect a little bit on, digest some of the things we were talking about about being in the boxing ring with Maya, and make sure that you become victorious, and it is possible. Maya can be humiliated, you know, by our strong efforts and our steadfastness in Krishna's consciousness. We simply have to, be good followers, stick to our vows, and that helps an awful lot. So thank you. Maybe we have some questions that are before us, if anything, either by the chat or Ananda Goranga. You're probably going to coordinate these questions that may come up.
Yeah, beautiful, Maharaj. Thank you so much. There's already some chat messages coming along. Simple and beautiful, relatable examples. Great class, Maharaj. So beautiful message. And there are some questions. So we kindly request you to send it through the chat forum so that we can combine the questions and ask the same to Maharaj. So Maharaj, as the questions are being typed up, we're thankful to you giving this beautiful spiritual context to this Boxing Day. And you had given the history of boxing as well. We didn't know that there's reference to boxing in Egypt, 3000 BC, and Greek books has some reference as well. So thank you so much, Maharaj. And also we see glimpse of boxing punches in our Srimad Bhagavatam as well. King of Kalinga's teeth was knocked out by Balaram, and in the fourth canto,
Not with the fist. He took his club.
club. In the pictures that we see, he's got this fist towards Dvivida. And this Pusha also teeth was knocked out in the fourth canto. So there's some glimpse of punches, and also, of course, the close enough sport, which is not meant for weak, is wrestling, which is in Mathura. Krishna participated in. So thank you so much, Maharaj. So can you please share some fighting techniques against mind? So that's one of the questions, Maharaj, from Bhuwana Sri Ganesh. Can you please share some fighting techniques against mind?
Okay, against Maya or the mind? Is that what
Against
is
our mind, mind.
yeah, that is the most popular question that comes my way, believe it or not. Okay. Well, yes, I think that techniques, I would say what comes to my mind right off the bat. You know, I'll say, you have to roll with the punches. Okay. See, somebody comes at you like this and with great force. You have to sort of play with it. You have to roll with the punches, meaning that um, it's not that we shouldn't resist. We have to fight back, but you have to learn the art of how to play the game. Maya is there. First of all, admit the punch is there, the blow is there. Admit that Maya is there. Someone was trying to call in. Uh, and just like say when you're chanting japa, Maya tends to penetrate and enter inside. And we have to admit, okay, Maya's there trying to really pound me into the ground. And what I'm trying to say is accept it, that this is what's going on. And do not be too discouraged, you know. But just like, say, like if you're driving in a car and you've got an icy, slushy road, and they usually say that steer, you know, steer in the direction. Don't try to go against the direction that you're being forced to go in, because that means your vehicle will topple all over and be more disastrous than before. So, kind of go with the flow, go with the punches. So what I'm saying is acknowledge that Maya is there. Don't be in denial that Maya is coming at you. Just because you're a great devotee, you've got first, second, diksha, or whatever, that Maya will not come and try to harm you. Admit, yes, Maya has come. Maya is part of my being, part of my existence. But we also have to learn to, um, let's say, deal with Maya in the sense that put up a good fight with Maya when the time comes. uh, Fight with some blows back. Now, how do you practically do that? Well, chant with great sincerity, chant on those beads. That's important. Another way that we get tested by Maya is when, say, like you're maybe angry with another Vaishnav, another spiritual seeker. And this puts you into a real danger zone, because if you offend someone else who's on the spiritual path, you get some serious reaction. So immediately, if you have bad thoughts about someone, try to check yourself. And if you can't check yourself, you probably will say something that's offensive to that other Vaishnava. And then be ready to admit that you were wrong and to apologize. Take a humble position. So I'd say a good technique is be ready to take a humble position for all that happens in your life. Be ready to say, I'm sorry, and prove it by attempting not to make the same mistake again. So I just think always play humble role. So start your day off with humility, and try to keep it that way. Then you will be empowered. Because, people often have this idea that aggression is power, but it's not. It's humility, and it's admitting, Maya, you are strong. You know, Strength is in humility, more so than in arrogance. Okay, so start by acting on the platform of I'm a small living entity, I'm a little spark of life. So begin with that. It's something you have to very much condition yourself with. So those are just some points to cover in this regard.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. If there is any follow-up question from the devotee, we kindly, request you to send another question. But in the meanwhile, Maharaj, there are a couple of more questions. One came through a private chat. With regard to what you said beautifully, Maharaj, with regard to Maya, that which is not absence of Krishna consciousness, drags you away, temporary, etc. That pulls us down and covers us over. Beautifully, you explained that. So the question is, yeah, there are certain black and white, like lust and anger and greed, but there are also some gray area. How can we make that into something neutral? Is that by moderation or by balance? Example, devotees in a family, they go on vacation, or they have to get some nicer clothing, or they have to work and they have promotions, they have to do reasonably well for them to be in the job, and what naturally follows is promotions, etc. So will that be termed, like, how does that fit into this term of Maya? Is that outside of that, or it can tend towards going into Maya?
I think we have to look at Maya as being that when things are excessive, then
Mm,
you can call it sin even, you know.
mm,
So when things are acquired um, for the purpose of keeping body and soul together, this is not Maya, you know. We all need to eat, and we are justified in having a nice meal, satisfying, and even to wear nice clothes. There's nothing outrageously wrong about that. We can't say it's dark Maya. But when one gets excessive,
mm,
then we can say then rajas and tamas, the energies of passion and ignorance will take hold of us. So done in moderate fashions in a balanced way, it's the way to go. Yeah, it's the way to go.
beautiful, Maharaj.
Yeah, and it's usually when we take direction, the guru is there to kind of guide us in this area to let us know what's too much and what's not enough, or even our parents help us and they you know, or use that, call the mantras and no 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 no,
Yeah.
too much. Like the kids with the candy and the sugar, right?
Mhm.
Too much. And so it's all in our training. By the time we become adults, we should be able to understand what's the balance, and we should have a healthy fear of Maya, a healthy fear of Maya, and knowing what's too much and what's not enough. Just from the beautiful invocational verse from the Sri Upanishad, it says Om Purnam Ada Purnam. Oh yes, it says Ishavasham idam sarvam. Yes. First shloka. It says there, everyone is, God is in charge. Everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. And He offers a certain quota for you to take. So to use. Don't take more, don't take less. Be moderate in what you do.
Mm.
So that's the way to approach it, and it really comes firmly in our life when we're trained like this early in our years.
Yeah, well, beautifully answered, Maharaj. So the key is moderation, balance, not to over rotate. And I think the
Yeah.
follow-up question was makeup and hair color and whatever, right? So again, you already answered that question. Whatever it takes, moderation, balance, and not go to overboard with that. And there's one more question, Maharaj.
I'll give you another example.
Sure.
In the early days, there were brahmacharis, and they were feeling that the women shouldn't be in the same room. The temple room might be big, spacious, and they shouldn't be in the same room because they're Maya, and that will tempt them, and they should go somewhere else, and there should be another space. And so the issue was brought up to Prabhupada and said, if they're agitated, then they should just go to the forest. So Prabhupada was being realistic. He was thinking like a father. I have my sons and my daughters. They just kind of work together. You know, when it came to single men and women who were trying to be, celibate for that time, he said if they want to talk to each other, Prabhupada says, pass the salt, please. That's about all you can say. We're eating prasadam. Pass the salt. You don't need to say much else.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I think if it's okay, we can wrap it up with one question from Jagannath Mishra Prabhu. It's a pretty common question, very general question, applicable to all temples and devotees as well. So this question is, what advice for you for the temple managers, how to stay away from Maya, especially when they have to deal with so many issues that seem to be at the mundane levels, right? Conflicts between devotees or money issues, political issues. So Krishna is the source of everything, but it's hard on practical level. So how do we deal with day-to-day issues and not get into these situations too much and lose focus on the bigger picture?
Well, it's part of your service to take up some battles, even if it's, like say you have two children and you're parenting and they're at each other's, throats, or, they got their claws out. You know, it's you could say, oh, this is too much troublesome for me. Just let them fight, let them, injure each other, and they can. Uh, we'll just call the ambulance. No, no, it's your job to try to protect, and it's part of your service. It's part of your service is to help devotees in need, even if they have some disputes, or you know, service is not always going to be that easy. It's not going to be an easy way out in from this mundane world to the spiritual world. You earn your right to be with Krishna by having going through some struggles, and it's not being on easy street. There's going to be a challenge to everything. Then you develop character. Then so it's we ask God to make us strong, you know, and we ask Krishna to make us strong, but sometimes he'll send all kinds of difficulties to us. And why would he do that? When he asks, hey, Mr. Nice Guy, can you please help me? Make it easy for me? Well, he just answered your prayer. You want to be strong with your faith in Krishna. And so he's giving you challenges that will make you strong. You know, he'll present difficulties to you. So you become a all-rounder kind of devotee. You can deal with all kinds of circumstances. And when you're a leader, yeah, you have to deal with all these kind of things. But you can cower away, or you can become heroic. Said, I have this job has to be done.
Hmm.
I mean, Arjun was trying to do that. And says, I think I'll take the easy road. And Krishna said, no, you're not. I hope that helps.
So I hope that answered the Jagannath Mishra Prabhu's question. I think he's got a second question, Maharaj. If you have one more minute, we can wrap it up with this. Is that okay, Maharaj?
Sure.
So how to remain humble and yet carry on like a Sthira Dhira Muni?
Sthita Dhiramuni. How
Yeah,
to be
Sthita.
humble? Well, it's pretty simple. Go for a walk. Look up in the sky at night, and what do you feel like when you see the stars and the moon? Do you feel arrogant? I don't think I can be. you know, Look at the world the way it is. Why don't you go out shopping at Boxing Day? Do you feel humble, or do you feel like? I guess some people feel real aggressive. But in the midst of all the madness, I think we can feel to be in the position of being humble. It's something that we have to try to adjust to every morning when we rise. I'm small, you know. Well, the beautiful thing about getting up, you're tired, your breath stinks, you've got stuff in your eyes, you look horrible in the mirror, and that's quite a humbling experience. I was on the bus tour for a number of years in the summer, and the first year I went, um, uh, we had boys and girls. They were own different departments. Boys were in one end, girls in the other. And I asked them, well, how do you deal with these things? Like, these are all young people in their teens and so on. Yeah, well, it kind of happens automatically. When somebody wakes up, they got bad breath and their hair's all over the place. And even for the girls, the makeup's not on. And, so, reality just kicks in automatically. You start humility with the truth that I am not a gorgeous creature. I am a stinky bag. I'm a mess. So let's look at the world in a realistic way, and put yourself in a situation where you'll feel humbled. So I always encourage people, go for a walk in the forest, and you'll feel humbled. You'll feel very much I'm not really in control of things.
So Maharaj,
All
all
right.
the questions that devotees had asked, they responded saying all their questions were answered beautifully, comprehensively. So we are really, really thankful to you, Maharaj, for this wonderful class and so many takeaways. But for me, the takeaway from the Boxing Day class, which we will take into the new year, 2022, is the three S's that you mentioned. Sangha, that includes sadhu as well, sadhana, and shastra. So, on behalf of all the devotees who joined today, Maharaj, we're very grateful and thankful for your time. And we will again have your wonderful association, hopefully at some point, in-person association in Scarborough. So until then, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna,
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 Hare
Krishna.
Hare, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama, Hare
Hare,
Hare.
Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you so
Jai.
much, Maharaj.
you so
Thank you,
much.
Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.